Let's take a moment and learn some Torah about Rav Kook here. And from Rav Kook, we're on the second Torah, the second essay in his book, Orot. Finished the first one, which really was about how Eretz Israel is essential to Judaism, and it's essential to our Jewish life and our Jewish practice. And when we make Israel something that's not foundational to who we are and to our very identity, we actually can't be who we are fully as Jews, right? We don't just have Eretz Israel or a state of Israel, um, or have a Jewish state there, or love Israel or favor moving to Israel because of safety concerns or because it's going to give you this or that. But it's really just a love relationship with Eretz Israel in itself. And it's really more about connecting to something that is already a part of us, and is just not activated yet. And by connecting to it, it helps us to fully manifest the special qualities of the Jewish people, and our relationship with God. The next teaching from Rav Kook, I think, is going to be so important for us. And that's really what this really is the relationship to the Jewish people to mystery and to the quality of mystery and the quality of things that go beyond logic. And really, the way he begins this, I'll read the first sentence of this essay, and I just want to give some background information, and then we'll keep going here. So this one he calls, he says, he begins, Al yidei rachakut mehakarata razim ba'a hahakara shel kedushat Eretz Yisrael b'tzora metushteshet. Right, by way of distancing ourselves from awareness of the mysteries, produces a distorted awareness of the sanctity of the land of Israel, right? And so what he really seems to mean here, and I just want, in order to understand sort of what he means, I think it's important for us to understand sort of some history here. You see, in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, especially during Jewish Enlightenment or in the Enlightenment period, when Jews were learning to become citizens amongst other nations, right? Equal and free citizens, like in France and in England and Germany and in America, of course. Um, Jews were challenged with becoming integrated into non-Jewish societies. And oftentimes, the Jewish community felt, and the Jews at the time felt, they needed to rationalize their Judaism so that they can explain it to a good Christian, right? So that, God forbid, they wouldn't think that Judaism is some kind of superstition or some kind of magic or some kind of backwards religion, that it needed to be made logical, right? And this was the attitude in general in the early 20th century and the late 19th century, that everything was built on rationalism and logic, and that everything could be understood. So many people, because of that, completely deleted Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism from the Jewish tradition. They didn't teach it. And the main reason was because there was an idea that people would think it was some kind of superstition or some kind of magic, and it would get rid of the respect that people should have for Judaism. And so many rabbis at the time they didn't teach it, they didn't learn it, they didn't talk about it. Judaism was completely rational. It was painted as a completely rational tradition. And I think because of that, in a lot of ways, Jews lost much of the soul of their Judaism. Really, our Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah really represents, in some deep ways, the very soul of our Judaism, right? If mysticism is the experience of God and the experience of godliness, right, that is beyond our understanding, right, that is the life and blood of religion, right, of actually experiencing God and experiencing what religion and Judaism has to offer us. If Judaism just becomes an intellectual or conceptual framework, right, it's not actually living and breathing. It's not real. It's not alive. And something that's a religious experience that's not alive, in which we really don't feel like we're actually connecting to Hashem, right, is not going to survive. And that's what we feel in a lot of still our shuls today, and in a lot of Jewish communities where Jewish religion, it kind of feels bone dry. It's not, there's not a real connection to Hashem that feels like it's going on at the time. And this is sort of the world in which Rav Kook walked into, after leaving Eastern Europe, of course. that this idea, in order to make Judaism intelligible, you have to sort of delete it of all its superstitious elements or things that are beyond logic. And here he's tying this specifically to this idea of that's also cutting yourself off from Eretz Israel. Because if the real experience of loving Eretz Israel and enjoying Eretz Israel and connecting to Eretz Israel is really about experience, it's really about experiencing something that's truly ineffable or truly something that's holy that goes beyond, right? If that's really the real quality of Eretz Israel, it can only really be experienced, and it cannot be something where, well, I'm going to explain it to you logically, or 2 + 2 = 4, right? I can make an equation and say, this is why Eretz Israel is so great, right? And explain it to everybody. But it really is unexplainable. And so it's about really having faith in mystery, right? Just as mystery within the Jewish tradition, but also mystery within Eretz Israel as well. Now, I think it's important to understand, and Bezalel Noora translates this really, really well. Awareness of the mysteries is the language used, not yidiyata mysteries. In the Hebrew here, it's hakarata razim, right? So really is the phrase that Rav Kook uses, which is a different form of knowledge, right? So there are really two verbs. There's probably more than that, but two major verbs to know in Hebrew, and that's yidiyah and lahakir, right? Ladat and lahakir, right? To know and to recognize. To know, ladat, is a really, really intense knowledge. It's a real understanding. It's a real connection. It's something where you really are connected, really understand it, really are on the inside of it. Well, hakara is more like a recognition, right? I know that thing. I know of it. It's like the differentiation in English we have between knowing something and knowing of something, right? And so he uses this knowing of language, hakara, which is just to recognize someone, right? Or to recognize something. And so I think what he's saying here is you don't have to be a master of Kabbalah. You don't have to be a master of Jewish mysticism and the secrets of Judaism and to really know them in order to understand and to really connect to Eretz Israel, as he's saying, but rather you need to have an understanding that it exists and that you have faith in it, that it's real, right? In some ways, rather than knowing something or actually knowing of something, what's more important is having faith in it, right, than necessarily understanding it. And this is how he goes on. He says, al yidei hitnachrut, el sod Hashem, nasot hasgulot elionot shel emek achayim elokiim, l'devrim tfeilim, she'enam nichnasim be'emek haneshama. Right, by our way of alienation, I'm going to read this translation from Bezalel Noor here. Due to alienation from the secret of the Lord, the highest qualities of godly life are reduced to trivia that do not penetrate the depth of the soul. Right? When we fail to have faith in the secrets of our tradition, right, the things that go beyond things that we logically understand, right, our Judaism dies. Right? We can't really access the depths of our real soul, which by definition are ineffable. Right? So we can't actually logically understand them, but we should be able to experience things we don't logically understand and make room for them in our lives, right? And in some ways, Judaism becomes trivial if it's not really about actually experiencing and having a real tachlis relationship with Hashem, right? A real relationship with the divine energy that unifies the universe. He continues, when this happens, the most mighty force is missing from the soul of nation and individual, and galut finds favor essentially, right? It's a little hard translation here. The words are a little difficult here, but in Hebrew, it's very clear of sort of what he's saying here, is that really when we do this, when we reduce ourselves and cut ourselves off from the mysteries of our tradition that go beyond logic, right, we actually take out our most special qualities. We begin to become disconnected from our most special qualities as a Jewish nation, right, which isn't just to intellectualize about the divine life, which isn't to just make philosophical conceptions about what it is to be in relationship with Hashem and to live a righteous life, but rather to actually do it and to actually experience it in a real way. Right? So that's really important to always assume within our Judaism that what you see is not necessarily the whole picture, which is so important. And he continues, Yesod Sipiyata Yeshua, who etzlo kamo anaf sadadi, einenu yichol yitkasher in omek hakarata yahadut. Right? So he says in Hebrew, the foundation of our service, right, of serving Hashem, which is this quality of Sipita Yeshua, right, looking out, which means in Hebrew, kind of looking from afar for salvation, hoping and expecting for salvation to come, which could mean about when Mashiach comes, when the Messiah comes, but in the fact that just understanding and looking forward to the fact that our world can be redeemed, no matter how implausible it can sound, right? And if one thinks of this idea of looking for salvation, which is Eretz Israel, it's Mashiach, right? It's redemption, right? It's the full manifestation of our Judaism in the physical land, right? If that is for him kamo anasradi, like some kind of side branch, it's not really very foundational or very important in Judaism, that he's not that he's not able to connect to the then won't be able to connect to the depth of the recognition of what Judaism is, right? So the person will be completely disconnected from what Judaism is without nurturing a faith in hoping for redemption, Mashiach, and for the full manifestation of the vision of God has for the world, which is what Judaism describes and tries to live out, right? When we are disconnected from this, we actually have no recognition of really what Judaism is. Judaism, requirement for Judaism is Sipit Yeshua, is hoping for the redemption of the world. Once we lose that hope and that expectation that it will come eventually, no matter how long it comes, as the language of the Rambam says, even though the Mashiach hesitates and waits and it's not really redeemed yet, we lose our Judaism. There's no more Judaism without an expectation of redemption. And let's finish this teaching off with the little bit of time we have left here. So he continues on. He finishes this teaching off. That he says this. Right? When we don't recognize Judaism and we don't actually connect to Judaism, this is evidence that we're not doing it correctly, right? So when our Judaism doesn't really work and it seems very surface level, we should listen to that. He continues and he says, Lo sholim anachnu kol min shiur v'havana v'hamyusad al hisharut v'rigshay dea v'yirat shamayim be'ezo tzor shehi. Right? He's kind of putting out a disclaimer here, right? We're not trying to invalidate other people's forms of Judaism and the way that they practice their Judaism, right? If their Judaism is yirat shamayim, right? If that Judaism has as part and parcel of it, right, respect for Hashem, right? Which I think in a deeper sense means a mindfulness of God's actual presence in the world and in our lives, and actual all of that, right? So there's that, and the idea of pursuing ethics, right? Of pursuing living a life of integrity in that way. Rocket Oto Atzad Shashita Kazot Tichpos L'shlo et Harazim Vet Hashpatam Agdola Al Ruach Ummah. What he's specifically trying to rail against are people who in Judaism who are trying to completely say that the Sod or the secret or the Razim or these things that go beyond logic are just not a part of Judaism, right? That's the problem, is the denial of the secrets, is the denial of the experiential element that goes beyond logic. Kizehu Ason Sha'anu Chayevim Lilchol Moto, that this is this great tragedy or this great crime, this horrible thing that has been trespassed, that we are obligated to fight against it. Be'etzav v'tuvuna, with advice and with understanding, uvekedusha uvegevura, with holiness and with might, right? Which is so important and in a wonderful way that he talks really here about fighting, right? With grace, with holiness, but with strength, which is and deep understanding, which is so important. Thank you so much today for coming to our fourth Rav Kook Yomi. We'll continue on tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And of course, we're always praying for Eretz Israel. We're always praying for Israel as they continue to fight Iran. And we hope for their success. Am Yisrael Chai, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.